West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy with Chef Justice Putnam. Netrootsradio.com.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. À fleurs sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
Well, they are finally trying. Here they are trying. Here's the latest attempt at trying. The elements of the news media that have been accused of sane washing Donald Trump know that they are guilty of exactly that. And now some of them, like the New York Times, they really are trying to do something about it. But this is their first try. So it's not perfect. The New York Times' first try was published tonight under the headline, "As debate looms, Trump is now the one facing questions about age and capacity," with a sub-headline reading, "His rambling, sometimes incoherent public statements have stirred concern among voters." The Times article does not use the term sane washing, which describes the way some in the news media edit Donald Trump's crazy statements down to a shape that allows them to then try to make sense of them. But the article does offer the New York Times' own confession about doing exactly that. Here is the New York Times confession in writing tonight in this article. Often his mangled statements are summarized in news accounts in ways that do not give the full picture of how baffling they can be. The New York Times has done that every single day. The New York Times has been covering Donald Trump, the politician, including in this article tonight. They couldn't get through the whole article without doing it. In this article, the New York Times is trying to cure itself of its habit of sane washing Donald Trump. And in the very next passage after the one that I just read, the New York Times tries to sane wash what Donald Trump said last week to these stupid rich people at the New York Economic Club who clapped enthusiastically for Donald Trump's incoherent response to a question about child care, a response that was not an answer. It was a widely criticized, incoherent jumble that did not answer the question about child care in any way. And in the article tonight, the New York Times thought they could cure their sane washing habit by quoting a larger portion of what Donald Trump said about child care instead of the short, sane washed bits that they used in the coverage of that event last week. Here is the New York Times attempt at a cure for its own habit of sane washing, in which, in the end, it sane washes Donald Trump again. Tonight's article says that because quoting Donald Trump at length, quote, can provide additional context, here is a more extended account of his reply on affordable child care. It's a very important issue, but I think when you talk about the kind of numbers that I'm talking about, that because childcare is childcare, it's there's something, you have to have it. in this country, you have to have it. But when you talk about those numbers compared to the kind of numbers that I'm talking about by taxing foreign nations at levels that they're not used to, but they'll get used to it very quickly, and it's not going to stop them from doing business with us, but they'll have a very substantial tax when they send product into our country. Those numbers are so much bigger than any numbers that we're talking about, including childcare, that it's going to take care. And after running that extended incoherent response by Donald Trump, the New York Times then, in the very next paragraph, sane-washed it with disinterpretation. What he seemed to be saying was that he would raise so much money by imposing tariffs on imported goods that the country could use the proceeds to pay for childcare. In itself, that would be a disputable policy assumption. A disputable policy assumption? That is the single most disturbing thing I have read in the New York Times about the New York Times. Let me just read the New York Times sane-washing once again. What he seemed to be saying was that he would raise so much money by imposing tariffs on imported goods that the country could use the proceeds to pay for childcare. In itself, that would be a disputable policy assumption. There was a time not long ago when everyone at the New York Times, and I mean everyone, including the printers and the delivery truck drivers, knew what a tariff is. Now it appears no one at the New York Times knows what a tariff is, including their top reporters covering the presidential campaign. This New York Times article allows Donald Trump to say that his tariffs would be taxing foreign nations. The New York Times allows that to stand as a fact in its campaign reporting. And that means that the New York Times campaign coverage and the New York Times economic coverage is hopelessly lost in this campaign. How slowly do I have to say it for the New York Times campaign reporters to understand it for the very first time? I've said it many times before. I understand the New York Times campaign reporters are too busy to be watching this program. I don't expect them to learn any of this from me. I expected them to learn this by the end of the first year of high school. A tariff is imposed by the United States of America and paid for by the people of the United States of America and no one else ever. The entire point of a tariff is to raise the price of the foreign product to the American consumer so that the American consumer does not want to buy it anymore because it's too expensive. All economists understand that American tariffs function as sales taxes paid by American consumers. Economists consider tariffs sales taxes. Yes, tariffs raise money. Yes, tariffs were the only way the federal government raised money before the imposition of income taxes. And the only way the American government can raise money is from the American people. The American government cannot tax anyone other than the American people. And the night before the debate, the New York Times is telling its readers that Donald Trump's tariffs are taxing foreign nations. Yes, Donald Trump tells a lot of lies. Yes, it's impossible to keep up with every one of those lies. But the tariff lie? The New York Times, in an article designed to take on Donald Trump's lies and incoherent ranting, prints Donald Trump's tariff lie and lets it stand. Its only question about it is whether the tariffs would raise enough money to pay for child care. Sane-washing Donald Trump's insane response about child care last week, the New York Times tries to tell you that Donald Trump seems to be saying that his tariffs would raise so much money that that money then could be used to pay for child care, but then maybe Donald Trump wouldn't use it for that. Donald Trump did not say one word about paying for child care or using tariff revenue to pay for childcare. There's not a single thing in Donald Trump's response that any sane person can convert to Donald Trump suggesting that the federal government should in any way do anything to pay for anyone's child care. And the New York Times hallucinated that explanation into existence. And after hallucinating that explanation of Donald Trump's madness into print, the New York Times then says it's a disputable policy assumption. No, it's not. It's completely impossible. What this article does do is prove to you how deep the actual intellectual rot is at the New York Times, at the reporting and at the editorial level, going all the way up to the top. This is a big and important article for the New York Times tonight. It had to be examined by multiple editors to make its way into print. And every one of them was completely cool with Donald Trump's insanity about tariffs. The New York Times was perfectly happy to put in print that Donald Trump's tariffs are, quote, taxing foreign nations. That lie, the New York Times lets stand unchallenged. Everyone working in the business section of the New York Times is embarrassed by this. Everyone in the business section, editors and reporters, all know the truth about tariffs. But they are not the reporters and editors who cover the Trump campaign. And so they have no input into an article about tariffs in the campaign coverage. None. The New York Times and the rest of the news media has been enabling Donald Trump's lies about tariffs for 10 full years now. And I used to think that they were doing that because Donald Trump was telling bigger lies than his lies about tariffs, more destructive lies, lies about elections, lies that have gotten people killed. And so for years, I have been occasionally, and only occasionally, but repeatedly pointing out Donald Trump's lies about tariffs multiple times a year. It has been a very lonely pursuit, but now I know. It is much, much worse than I thought. Now I know that there are people working at the New York Times who believe Donald Trump when he says tariffs are taxing foreign nations. There are people at the New York Times who will allow that to go into print uncontested. They have forgotten whatever it was they were supposed to learn in high school about tariffs. And they let Donald Trump's tariff lies simply seep into the political system, seep into the very soil of American politics without ever examining or disputing Donald Trump's lies about tariffs, lies that give people false hope about what's possible. And that means that we should be sitting here tonight with absolutely no confidence that there is anyone anywhere working at ABC News who knows what a tariff is. I didn't think that yesterday, but I now think that is possible because of what the New York Times obviously does not know about tariffs. And I thought the New York Times was the best on this stuff. The one person working at ABC News who I know knows what a tariff is George Stephanopoulos, who worked on that issue as a staffer in the House of Representatives and then worked on that issue and many others in the White House with President Clinton. But George Stephanopoulos has no role in tomorrow night's debate hosted by ABC News. So, when Donald Trump lies about tariffs, it will be Vice President Harris's job alone, with no help from the moderators, to try to undo 10 years of lying to America about what a tariff is and who pays a tariff. And that is how unbalanced this debate is going to be before it even starts. Kamala Harris won't just have to fend off new Trump lies tomorrow night. She will have to fend off 10 years of the accumulated weight of Trump lying, including on subjects that the news media has never made an attempt of any kind to challenge Donald Trump. What's the toughest question you've ever heard a reporter ask Donald Trump about tariffs? The answer is none. There has never been a tough question put to Donald Trump about tariffs. 24 hours from now, you will be hearing many commentators sane-washing much of what Donald Trump has to say tomorrow night. In that sense, Kamala Harris won't just be debating Donald Trump tomorrow night. She will also be debating the news media reviewers of the debate, many of whom do not comprehend the fundamental facts of government, like a tariff is not taxing foreign nations.
We're going to be a tariff nation. It's not going to be a cost to you. It's going to be a cost to another country. So I'm a tariff president. I'm not a tax increase president, because we're going to lower your taxes when I'm back in the White House.
Tariffs are taxes on you. The reason no previous president ever wanted to be called a tariff president is that all of those presidents knew that Americans pay American tariffs. And all of their voters knew that too.
It is Tuesday, the 10th of September of 2024, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam. Gunner, the English Bulldog, is our snoozing sous chef, doing his work as he was hired to do, can you tell? Well, we are about ready to seat you directly. How is that possible? About directly? Yes, we are about to seat you directly for our especially special, daily special Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. A small scant dash, a mere pinch of hot smoked Hungarian paprika will make all the difference in the world. It always has, and it always will, indeed. Yes, Gunner has been snoring quite loudly. He has to wear the cone because of his sutures on his face. So he's always been a snorer, but it seems to be resonating on the cone a lot louder, almost like a megaphone. So all that noise you've been hearing since yesterday, well, that's Gunner doing his job very, very well. Hey, I got the call from Dr. Dickey, the vet, yesterday, and I went and picked up little Precious's ashes in her urn, and it is quite lovely. I will take a photo and post it for those of you who may be interested. And I don't know when, maybe today, maybe. Anyway, makes me a little sad. Just like with Mom, there were certain things that I did even before she got sick. Well, let me back up a little bit. Let me revisit that because she had been going through various things throughout the last year of her life. Everything from bad teeth. So we had a lot of teeth taken out, but little dogs like that have a lot of teeth. So that was pretty amazing. Some other issues that we were dealing with, structural issues. She had knee surgery, and then she got the bone marrow cancer, the leukemia. But regardless, there were certain things during the day and the morning that I would do for her care, and it was the same thing with Mom. I have like muscle memory still with Mom, and I got muscle memory about the little doggy too. So like getting up this morning, normally Gunner just snoozes and if he has to go, he comes and gets me. Well, I just thought it was easier for the little dog. I just leave the back door open for her and she could come and go as she wanted, and she would. But now I don't do that. Well, because you kind of want to keep the insects out, let alone any criminals who may be happening by when you have your back to the door that is open and they come all the way into your house and you're snoozing sous chef English Bulldog continues snoozing. I like to think that he would become a watchdog and let me know someone was coming in, but he would snooze all the way through it. So I just thought, well, I'll just leave the door closed. Gunner's not going out for a while. No need to open it up in the dark. It was always kind of neat to do that anyway, though. So, yeah, I still miss her. She was a cute little thing. So, thank you all for once again bearing with me while I went through, well, we all went through that journey, didn't we? Yes, we did. All right, other news on the local front. We had some kids who had stolen, I guess they stole a Trump sign from this, the bus is going by, so excuse it also. I like to keep the windows open just to get a little bit more cool in, even though it's only going to be in the upper 80s today. That's still kind of hot, don't you think? So we'll have some school bus sounds here for a few moments. But regardless, there was a house down the way who has been... now, of course, there's a lot of MAGA signs in town. Okay, just saying. But I know this particular house because the kid sells lemonade out there on occasion. And before they put the Trump signs up, I helped the kid out. I'm sorry. I'm just not... I can't buy lemonade all the time. How about that? Okay. And now that you've got the Trump signs out, I'm kind of busy right now. All right. I got lemonade at home. So, apparently some teenagers had come by and stole a sign, a yard sign. I don't think they took the various signs that were off their fence. It was on the public side of the fence. So we're just saying. Okay. It's an odd configuration. You can walk by their house, and when you get into like what would be their property line, there's Trump signs along that fence, and then on the other side where the Napa Auto store is, they have a bunch of Trump signs on that side too. So people who are parking in that little parking lot can see Trump signs. And there's others that have been putting up, as I told you, ultra MAGA signs every time they realize, oh my God, we're going to lose this election because, oh my God. I'm still waiting for them to... Well, actually, I have heard the deep state accusation about some of the Russian indictments. And I'm like, well, thank God we have a deep state that keeps America safe, damn it. What they mean is that it's a Jewish cabal running everything because they read it, the Elders of Zion, which is apparently a book that they don't want to take out of the schools because it's not grooming the kids. Anyway, so some local kids, people have their security cameras, their chime cameras or whatever it is. I tend not to have one. Oh, maybe I shouldn't tell people this. I have plenty of security. Don't you dare. But I hate the idea of these porch cameras because for a number of reasons. One is maybe I don't want some nefarious company having all my data. One might argue, well, you just last night with your new Samsung phone hooked up all of your Samsung appliances because they're smart. What about that data? Well, I guess I should have been thinking about that when I thought about the convenience of, wow, I can just turn on my dryer from my bedroom with my phone. So maybe I will get one of these porch cameras after all now. Anyway, these kids were apparently caught in static photos, not any moving. And it is quite blurry, so you can't really tell actual features or whatnot. And it actually, it also looks like the girl and the owner of the home. Everybody's young to me, okay? Let me just say that everybody under 50 is a kid to me right now. So I'm sure that this family, they're in their 30s or whatever, because their kid is like around 10 or so. But the mother of the house had specified that the girl had red hair. Okay, good. Okay, I guess you can tell that. I can't. Anyway, so it has caused a little bit of an uproar in town, and rightfully so, because don't steal yard signs. Let me back up once again. It looks like the girl, the redheaded girl, puts the sign back, but the mother says, no, it's gone. Well, it looks like she put it back. Her friend said, you can't steal the yard sign, so they put it back. Maybe it fell off, and, so who knows? We all know how much whining goes on with MAGA. But it is wrong to steal yard signs. It's actually a misdemeanor. Don't do it. But they're kids. Okay? So we have some in town who say, well, what we should do is, well, first of all, call the cops. Call the cops. Yeah, well, I don't think the cops are going to go pursue this too greatly, but we'll see. Others want to round up a vigilante force and hunt them down. I am not kidding you. They're kids. Kids. So, of course, since I, who has been identified as one of the sorry-ass liberal trolls around here, had to bring up the fact that, let's put this on a little bit of scale. First of all, it's a misdemeanor to steal a yard sign. It looks like she put it back. Okay? By dint of the fact that she took it, is still a violation. Okay? Putting it back, that's good. But it's still technically a violation. But don't do it. Cops are only going to investigate crimes that are worth their time also. So a kid who looks on the security camera of putting the sign back, whatever happened to that sign after she put it back, is immaterial at this point. And we are also going by a Trumper's assessment of the events. Okay, so let's be clear. They're all victims, always. But there were other people who say the kids did a great civic duty. That all they were doing was picking up the trash in the community and putting it where it belonged. Well, they put it back. But anyway, I just think it's quite funny. But once again, as I have been identified as one of the sorry-ass liberal Democrat trolls here in town, I had to bring up the fact, in terms of scale, that when my gay neighbors had their house tagged with "fuck you, faggot, get out of town," we called the cops. We neighbors did. Our gay neighbors called the cops. They wanted to leave town. Fortunately, during the Trump years, because the economy was so shitty, they couldn't afford to move. I say fortunate because I don't want terrorists being able to terrorize our people, whoever our people are, and they're Americans. Well, the cops came and said they couldn't do shit, and they didn't. Security camera be damned. Oh, too blurry. Can't tell. So, a lot of people forgot about that. Well, there's also a lot of people who forgot there was a mass shooting at Roseburg Community College during the Trump years also. That actually people here in town refuse to believe happened. I'm using actually a lot, so I tried not to use it twice in one sentence. They believe that it did not happen. It's all deep state fake news. Roseburg is less than 20 minutes, half an hour away, maybe 45 minutes away, maybe, most. It's not far. There are people in town whose kids have gone to Roseburg to go to that college. People here in town don't believe that vaccines should have any place in our schools, so that's why we have an outbreak of measles right now. But yeah, it's the liberal commies that are the problem. So, yeah, some people didn't know about that. So we've had some recent arrivals, and, this is a nice town, I will admit. Even my MAGA neighbor, I got to tell you, she'd been out of town quite a bit, just retired from the military, and so she was semi-retired when our gay neighbors had their issue. But she's a direct neighbor, and she looks out for them. They speak. We all speak. We all have, picnics and dinners and stuff on my property. I have a big old garden-type park-like setting, as I've mentioned before. You've seen some pictures. Some of you have. We all get along. That's how it should be. It's easy to, go off online when, you can pretend we're all anonymous. Sometimes people don't recognize each other at the little local pubs. Oh, you're who you are? Actually, just between you and me, I go by Roy a lot in town, which is my first name. And I decided to do that because of the outrageous response I got from Proud Boys and Boogaloo Boys and MAGA just for simply stating simple little things like, I don't know, Trump is a mobbed up Russian money launderer. Everybody knows that. He got kicked out of the Sharper Image for selling E. coli steaks. No, any kind of insult that you can come up with that is predicated in fact, they deny and they want to shoot you. And then complain, the liberals just are so violent. Oh, really? Because I said no? Yeah, they cannot stand no. They can tell you no. They can't be told no. Anyway, it's a lovely existence all in all. Why not? Oh, let me give you a rundown on what we have in store for you here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy on this fine Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. Well, at the top, yeah, the New York Times is saying washing Trump. And they're not the only ones. On the rest of the menu, Ron DeSantis is sending state police to Florida voters' homes to interrogate them about signing a petition to get an abortion rights amendment on the November ballot. Yeah, that's Nazi bullshit. The FBI reported Americans lost $5.6 billion last year in cryptocurrency fraud scams, so Trump is now selling crypto. He is. He just launched another crypto line. And the DOJ charged 2 white supremacists with soliciting attacks on minorities, officials, and infrastructure on Telegram to start a race war. I think rather than soliciting attacks, they mean to have assassinated minorities, public officials, and attacks on infrastructure. That's how I should rewrite it. I will. After the break, we move to the chef's table where the Spanish Prime Minister visited China during a dispute over electric vehicles. And Poland's security officials said they foiled cyber attacks and online blackmail attempts by groups acting for the Russian and Belarusian intelligence services. I keep telling everybody, this is a worldwide war, and we better act accordingly. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. Homepage at netrootsradio.com. To the right of the page is the link to our Patreon page. And if you could become a recurring Patreon of Netroots Radio, it really would help us. If you could afford to send us what you might spend on an espresso-type coffee drink once a month, those funds are pooled with others who are of like mind, who have already done so, by the way. And we need a few more because the costs keep going up. I'm not calling it inflation, okay? Let's be clear about that. We know exactly what it is. But anyway, the costs do go up. And we have found that when we pay our bills, somehow we can fly under the radar. Yeah! So we're going to take that entitlement and take it all the way. And that's why we are a powerhouse of resistance, because of your generosity. So thank you, and thank you to those of you who have been so generous, and we give a big thanks to those of you who might consider doing so in the near future. Please, near future. Okay. Alrighty. One more reminder, follow me on social media at Justice Putnam. I post the show notes and links diary on Daily Kos 10 minutes before showtime, and you'll have quick access to the full reportage by the actual reporters by following my social media feed at Justice Putnam, and then I'll take you quickly to the show notes and links diaries on Daily Kos. All right, this first offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays, is by Kate Payne from the Associated Press. State police are showing up at Florida voters' homes to question them, I say interrogate, about signing a petition to get an abortion rights amendment on the ballot in November, and a state health care agency has launched a website targeting the ballot initiative with politically charged language. Critics say they are the latest efforts by Florida's Republican elected officials, Ron DeSantis and his mob, to leverage state resources to try to block the abortion rights measure, moves which some Democratic officials argue could violate state laws against voter intimidation. She only has to say could because Ron DeSantis is a little demagogue in those stupid white waiters. Ron DeSantis has repeatedly used state power to interfere with a citizen-led process to get reproductive freedom on the ballot, Florida Democratic Chair Nikki Fried said on Monday yesterday. This is their latest desperate attempt before Election Day. The ballot initiative, known as Amendment 4, would enshrine abortion rights in Florida law. If approved by 60% of the voters, the procedure would remain legal until the fetus is viable, as determined by the patient's health care provider. Isaac Minash, one of nearly 1 million people who signed the petition to get the measure on the ballot, said a law enforcement officer knocked on his door last week in Lee County in southwest Florida to ask him about signing it. The officer said the questioning was part of an investigation into alleged petition fraud. I'm not a person who's going out there protesting for abortion, Minash told the newspaper. I just felt strongly, and I took the opportunity when the person asked me to say, yeah, I'll sign that petition. Critics say the investigation is a brazen attempt. Critics? I guess so. If you're a critic of Nazism, which isn't hard, why don't we just call it that? But back to the article. The investigation is a brazen attempt to intimidate voters in the country's third largest state from protecting access to abortion, and the latest in a series of efforts by the governor's administration to target Amendment 4. Amendment 4 was placed on the ballot by nearly 1 million Floridians around the state and across party lines who believe that people, not politicians, deserve the freedom to make their own health care decisions, Lauren Brenzel, the director of the Yes on 4 campaign, said. But the state will stop at nothing to keep in place the near total abortion ban. Associated Press staff brings us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Americans were duped out of more than $5.6 billion last year through fraud schemes involving cryptocurrency, the FBI said in a report released yesterday, Monday. That shows a 45% jump in losses from 2022. The FBI received nearly 70,000 complaints in 2023 by victims of financial fraud involving Bitcoin, Ether, and other cryptocurrencies. The most rampant scheme was investment fraud, which accounted for almost $4 billion of the losses. The decentralized nature of cryptocurrency, the speed of irreversible transactions, and the ability to transfer value around the world make cryptocurrency an attractive vehicle for criminals while creating challenges to recover stolen funds, wrote Michael Nordwall, Assistant Director of the FBI's Criminal Investigative Division. Scammers will often make contact through dating apps or social media to build trust over several weeks or months before suggesting cryptocurrency investing, the FBI said. Oh, really? They wait that long? Once the relationship is built, they convince the targets to use fake websites or apps to invest their money. You mean like, would you talk to me on Telegram? No, I'm not talking to you on Telegram. Sometimes even allowing the victims to withdraw small amounts of money early on to make it seem legitimate. Yeah. In some cases, those victims are then targeted by bogus businesses claiming they will help the victim recover the cryptocurrency they lost. Well, I had a friend that said, "No money is free. Don't expect to get some." Eric Tucker at the Associated Press brings us this final offering here in the Bistro Cafe part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. Two people who prosecutors say were motivated by white supremacist ideology have been arrested on charges that they used the social media messaging app Telegram to encourage hate crimes and acts of violence against minorities, government officials, and critical infrastructure in the United States. The defendants, identified as Dallas Humber and Matthew Allison, face 15 federal counts in the Eastern District of California, including charges that accuse them of soliciting hate crimes and the murder of federal officials, distributing bomb-making instructions, and conspiring to provide material support for terrorists. Now, Umber, age 34, who I should make mention, Dallas Umber is a woman, from Elk Grove, California, and Allison, a guy, age 37, of Boise, Idaho, were arrested on Friday. Humber pleaded not guilty in a Sacramento courtroom Monday to the charges, and her attorney, Noah Oren, declined to comment on the case Monday afternoon after the arraignment. The indictment accuses the two of leading Terrorgram, a network of channels and group chats on Telegram, and of soliciting followers to attack perceived enemies of white people, government buildings, energy facilities, and high-value targets such as politicians. The pair's exhortations to commit violence, including statements such as "take action now and do your part," and users who carried out acts to further white supremacism, were told they could become known as saints. Justice Department officials say Humber and Allison used the app to transmit bomb-making instructions and to distribute a list of potential targets for assassinations, including a federal judge, a senator, and a former U.S. attorney, and to celebrate acts or plots from active Terrorgram users. And I was reminded by a neighbor here in town when I posted the actual charges from the Justice Department yesterday on the town Facebook page, because I like to do that. They do still walk among us, and we do need to take care. All right, let's get to our break, and when we get back from that break, we will go through weather from around the world, and we will finish up with the stories that we have curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
Go to jail for sleeping in a courtroom? I'm Bill Newman. This is the Civil Liberties Minute, and here's the story from the Detroit Free Press. A 16-year-old girl was in court in Detroit recently as part of a school field trip. A local judge in between hearings addressed the teenage students and their adult chaperones. The judge, who was not behind his bench, indeed another student was sitting in his chair, and was not wearing his judicial robe, spoke for about 45 minutes. And a teenage girl who had not slept well the night before fell asleep. Just wondering here whether the judge could have been a bit boring. Anyway, the judge walked over to the young woman and screamed at her, "Wake up!" A video showed the judge ordering her taken back to, quote, where we keep people who are disrespectful to the court. 2 hours later, the 16-year-old girl was returned to court in a green jumpsuit, in handcuffs. After threatening the 16-year-old with contempt for sleeping, the judge tells some disturbing stories about what happens to kids in juvenile detention, but ultimately lets her leave. As a local law professor explained, judges are required not only to avoid impropriety, but also the appearance of impropriety. Quote, this is a very high standard that does not appear to have been met in this case. Really? You think? The Civil Liberties Minute is made possible by the ACLU, because freedom can't protect itself.
You're listening to the American Democracy Minute, keeping your government by and for the people. In wins for voters, 2 Pennsylvania Commonwealth Court rulings confirm that so-called naked ballots may be cured with a provisional ballot, and that undated or misdated mail ballots must be counted. The AP reports that 16,000 Pennsylvanians had their mail ballots rejected because of missing information in the 2022 midterms, over 8,000 of which for missing the outer secrecy envelope, so-called naked ballots. Another 7,900 ballots rejected had missing or inaccurate dates. A 2020 state case confirmed that county authorities could reject naked ballots and gave election officials latitude to decide whether to notify a voter that a ballot could be fixed, known as curing. Democracy Docket reports that 2 Butler County voters sued when officials refused to cure their 2024 state primary ballots. The ACLU argued that if their ballots were defective, they should be entitled to cure them with a provisional ballot so they wouldn't be disenfranchised. A lower court denied the argument, but the Pennsylvania Commonwealth Court overturned the decision September 5th. This follows another decision from the Commonwealth Court August 30th that Pennsylvania counties must count otherwise valid mail ballots which have no date or are misdated. Big wins for Pennsylvanians hoping their vote will count in November. We've linked to more at AmericanDemocracyMinute.org. I'm Brian Beal.
I'm Rick Smith. and this is Labor History in 2.
On this day in labor history, the year was 2012. That was the day the Chicago Teachers Union walked off the job for the first time in 25 years. The historic week-long strike resonated nationwide among trade unionists and served to reinvigorate the labor movement. Certainly, higher wages and better benefits were among the teachers' demands. The city's mayor, Rahm Emanuel, had canceled the union's wage increase, laid off close to 1,000 teachers, and went on the attack against seniority rights and working conditions. The strike enjoyed wide public support among parents and the public. Teachers emphasized broader educational problems they faced, namely the attacks fueled by corporate privatization. They wanted a return to more traditional forms of education rather than simply preparing students for endless rounds of testing. They wanted more art, music, and gym classes. And they demanded stable funding for social support services for the most vulnerable at-risk students. Union teachers understood that the Board of Education was using standardized testing to get rid of teachers and schools in order to privatize education, all in the name of turning around failing schools and helping the kids. Though the contract was less than perfect, it showed the power working people have to hold the line against continued assaults on their standards of living, especially in the public sector. The CTU was able to beat back attempts at merit pay and increased use of student test scores in teacher evaluations. They won first-time recall rights, supply reimbursements, and liberal arts classes. There were concessions, however, made on seniority rights, pay for laid-off teachers, and longer workdays. But the CTU demonstrated that strikes can win in a period of extended anti-union onslaughts.
Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. We always begin weather from around the world along the banks of the Rogue River, in the Rogue River Valley of southern Oregon, on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 58 degrees Fahrenheit, expecting highs around 90, so a bit cooler than what we had yesterday, just a bit. Sunny to partly cloudy, and then winds will be out of the west-northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. A few clouds overnight with lows in the low to mid-50s, winds out of the west-northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Bringing with it tomorrow, Wednesday, rain early, then remaining cloudy with showers in the afternoon. Highs in the low 70s, winds out of the west at 5 to 10 miles per hour, and we are expecting a third to a half inch of rain, smattering of rain through the rest of the week, and then some more rain showers on the weekend. Fall is upon us. Ragweed pollen is rated low here in our little hamlet of Rogue River. The air quality index for the region, though, is in the moderate range at 56 parts per million. And that daytime UV index has notched down into the moderate range and is now at level 5. Barometric pressure is falling at 29.92 inches. Visibility is up to 10 miles. And relative humidity is at 82%. Weather from around the world is brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world, and that is the Weather Underground. London is 65 degrees with light rain. Paris is 63 with showers in the vicinity. Rome is 86 and sunny. Kabul is 71 and clear. Hong Kong is 88 and fair. Tokyo is 82 degrees and fair. Auckland, New Zealand is 55 and mostly cloudy. San Francisco, California is 62 degrees and cloudy with a small craft advisory on the bay and offshore for dense fog, which will lift in a few hours. Chicago, Illinois is 75 degrees and sunny, and New York, New York is a pleasant 73 degrees Fahrenheit and sunny. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world. At the World Desk of the Associated Press brings us this first amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez discussed the conflicts in Ukraine and Gaza and the need for close, deep, and balanced relations between Spain and China during a meeting with Chinese leader Xi Jinping, the Spanish government said. The Prime Minister's second trip to China in less than 2 years demonstrates the, quote, shared desire by both countries to maintain a regular dialogue at the highest level in their bilateral relations, end quote. Sanchez and Xi's talks yesterday, Monday, at Beijing State Guest House touched on the conflicts in Ukraine and Gaza, and the Spanish leader insisted on working toward peace with the involvement of the United Nations. China is one of 5 permanent veto-holding members of the UN Security Council. Spain is a member of NATO, which China has accused of prompting Russian President Vladimir Putin to launch his full-scale invasion of Ukraine more than 2 years ago. Sanchez, who also met with his counterpart Li Jingyang, said, "We want to build bridges to jointly defend a fair trade order that permits the growth of our economies and benefits our industries and citizens," according to the government statement. Oh, really? We couldn't tell. Sanchez and the Chinese officials made statements in favor of free trade and the promotion of cultural exchanges and tourism, according to Chinese state broadcaster CCTV, but did not announce any specifics in an ongoing dispute over electric vehicles. Staff at the World Desk of the Associated Press brings us this final amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Poland's security officials said yesterday, Monday, they foiled cyber attacks and online blackmail attempts by groups acting for Russian and Belarusian intelligence services. Poland has registered up to 1,000 online attacks daily, targeting government institutions and agencies, linking them to the country's support for neighboring Ukraine in its 2.5-year war against Russia's invasion. The group that was broken up was seeking access to information in state and individual companies with the goal of blackmailing them, the Digital Affairs Minister said. He said that in the first half of 2024, more than 400,000 attempted or successful cyber attacks were recorded, compared to 370,000 in all of last year. The government plans new legislation to increase Poland's cybersecurity. The government would like internet operators to store data servers in Poland, not abroad, and to ensure better internal protection and oversight by national authorities. Well, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day. But you do know Netroots Radio broadcasts on, and we will meet up here tomorrow for Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks, and we will meet up here tomorrow, right here in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. À fleurs, sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair. T'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.